I discovered my wife was unfaithful during her summer writing workshop, so I decided to hire a private investigator, gathered the evidence, and I found out my wife was cheating during her summer writing workshop. So I hired someone to gather evidence and then vanished completely before she got back. I'm Mark Peterson, but my friends just call me Ab. Definitely not Andy. There's always that one annoying drunk or clueless dude who thinks it's cool to call me Andy. Hey Andy, what do you do for work? They're curious. I came up with this awesome gadget that allows officers to check for intoxicated individuals from 40 feet away. They've actually begun linking them to radars throughout the area. That typically silences them, but if you haven't caught on yet, that device isn't actually a thing. It's obvious that I don't have much tolerance for nonsense. If you deceive me, the situation will only deteriorate. I'm just a straightforward dude, nothing too complicated about me. I appreciate keeping things simple and take pride in what I do. I'm an engineer at a large national company that has offices spread across the entire country. I hang out with friends, and even though I'm not really into drinking a lot, I enjoy having a beer every now and then. Honestly, I'm more of a nachos person, but that's just my personal preference. If I don't keep it in check, I'm going to pack on the pounds. I try to stay in pretty good shape for my age. I used to hit the water whenever I could, but now with a wife and 2 little girls, my time is pretty much spoken for. In the end, I decided to part ways with the boat. I've made plenty of compromises over the years, all to ensure I get quality time with the people who truly matter in my life. I've been happily hitched to Laura for 20 years now. She's a teacher at the high school level. Both of our daughters are currently attending college. Emma is hitting the books at Cornell University in Rhode Island, while her younger sister Lily is doing her thing at NYU. Honestly, I might not be able to swing those pricey schools, but thankfully, the girls are super committed and landed some amazing scholarships. We live in Georgia in a spot called the Research Triangle. It's all about some amazing universities in Atlanta, and it's right next to some seriously impressive high-tech companies. Living and working here is absolutely fantastic. I could share my thoughts on Carolina BBQ, but honestly, it would just leave me craving it even more. Honestly, I felt a bit let down when the girls chose to go to colleges up north. But I get it. They're looking to step outside their comfort zone, and that's definitely a good move in the long run. Our daughters are truly incredible, smart, hilarious, and full of charm, all while holding on to strong moral values. I stress about their safety every day, but I have faith in their ability to make good choices. Seeing them grow up and start to find their own way has finally given my wife and me some much-needed time to ourselves again. I was really excited for this moment, and I had been anticipating it for quite some time. With both girls off at college, I picture coming home each evening to a devoted wife who would give me her full attention, just as I would for her. I imagined us reigniting our bond, resulting in days brimming with joy. It felt just like those early days of being newlyweds all over again. We could hit up some restaurants, catch some shows and films, and really reconnect like I always dreamed we would. But things didn't really go down the way I thought they would. Honestly, reflecting on that initial year of having an empty nest, I observed Laura going through some changes. It felt like her interests were changing direction. The change was slow at first, but over time it became pretty clear. At first, I figured these changes were her way of thriving now that our daughters had moved out. Eventually, I came to see that what I was witnessing was a major shift in her values and priorities. Laura teaches English and focuses on creative writing. Honestly, she's just a writer who's feeling pretty stuck. As a young mom and teacher, she often found herself too busy to write the way she truly desired. In the summer and whenever she finds a free hour or two, Laura spends her time writing. Honestly, not a whole lot has happened yet. She would submit her essays and short stories to literary magazines, only to end up with a stack of rejection letters. The epic creation she dreamed of just never came to be. I have to say, I do find her writing enjoyable, but as a writer, she tends to stick to formulaic plots and occasionally leans into overly dramatic storytelling. She seems to have this idealized view of what a writer is supposed to be, and honestly, I think she's more into the concept of being a writer than the actual craft of writing. But hey, if she's happy, then I'm happy as well. For the majority of our marriage, Laura has participated in different writing groups. These are meetups where folks unite to support one another by sharing feedback, ideas, and conversations about their projects, all with the goal of enhancing each other's writing skills. Some of these groups seem to actually get things done, while others feel more like gatherings where everyone just pats each other on the back. Her final group, the one she was part of when everything went sideways, had aspects of both. They alternated visiting each other's places, and when they were hanging out, I made an effort to give them some room. I tried to get involved once, but Laura and some others weren't on board, so I gave up. Laura's writing group has about 8 members, featuring a mix of both men and women. I'm really into some of them, but there are definitely a few I could pass on. Some of them are pretty forgettable, while others definitely stand out when you encounter them. For example, Nora, a woman, is really into writing histories and biographies. She does genuine research and authors books that have an academic flair, all while striving to captivate her audience. I've gone through all of her books and really liked them. Sarah totally loves diving into the world of fantasy writing. I doubt she sees herself becoming the next J.K. Rowling. She definitely vibes with the talking unicorn kind of thing. She's super chill, and it looks like her writing is mostly just for her own enjoyment. Who's going to dispute that? Dan takes on the persona of the group's resident expert. A bit of that can really stretch, but other than that, he appears to be fine. And then we have Greg. The first time I met him, I was definitely on edge, and that feeling hasn't faded at all since then. When I met Greg, it was obvious that the introduction was more about me meeting him than the other way around. He turned to me and said, "So, Andy, what do you do for a living?" I caught a glimpse of my wife, who shot me a subtle frown and shook her head in disapproval. I just said, "I'm an engineer, Greg." Was it a genuine smile or just a sly smirk he gave back? I said I had stopped trying to interact with their group, choosing to remain somewhat in the background and low-key, but still within earshot when they come around. I usually find myself in the next room, quietly focused on my work, or chilling on the back porch with a window cracked open, just listening in on their chatter until they completely forget I'm there. I couldn't help but notice that when Greg chats with Laura, there's this vibe between them filled with inside jokes and a connection that honestly gives me the creeps. There are moments when he really lifts her spirits, but then there are times when it feels like he gets into her head in a way that rubs me the wrong way. He brings up old chats that feel exclusive to them, and it gives me the vibe that the rest of the crew doesn't recall those times. It's hard to explain, but I'm really not into it, and I've made that clear to her. She totally ignores my worries, and I've figured out it's best not to press the issue. I've laid out my feelings clearly. Now it's her call on what to do next. The crew sticks to a set routine when they gather for their meetings. After grinding through their work session, they kick back with some wine and chill out. It's at this point that I come to see that some of them are just playing a role. It all went down in the thick of the spring semester, right around early March, when the conversation turned to the lives of genuine writers. It's like all the legendary authors had a thing for booze, right? You got it. They spent their mornings writing and their afternoons and evenings enjoying drinks. It calms the brain and makes way for fresh thoughts. So in the mornings, that's when the creative juices start to flow and they dive into writing. Honestly, all the great writers have gone through their fair share of romantic relationships. That's what really drove them forward. That's what Greg was saying, huh? Appreciate the share, Greg. I'm beginning to see your perspective. That's when Laura's words landed on me like a gut punch, for sure. The rush and the suspense of not knowing what's next, along with the thrill of keeping it all under wraps from everyone else, that's where true inspiration lies. Some of them laughed, while others were totally unfazed, so I told myself it was all in good fun. Still, I couldn't help but listen in on their chat for the rest of the night. Maybe we should all just have a crazy night of passion, and then each of us can pen the next great American novel. That originated from Dan. I couldn't really tell if he was joking or being serious. Character flaws aren't the foundation for outstanding storytelling. What really makes stories stand out are elements like humanity, empathy, and the courage to face the unknown. I've said it before, but I really like Sarah. Epic tales revolve around conquering obstacles, pushing for excellence against all challenges, and making the world a better place than it was before. Maybe if you work your magic just right, we can skip all the drama. It was that annoying Greg again. It's honestly disappointing that a few people in the group thought that was funny. I have my doubts that Sarah did, and I kind of suspect Nora didn't either. They kept chatting about the drinking habits and affairs of writers, and I just stayed in the background, listening in without revealing myself. Then I stumbled upon a fascinating snippet of their chat. Is anyone else thinking about applying for the Ohio Writers Workshop this summer? Greg was talking again. Yeah, I went ahead and submitted my application. I really hope they give me the green light. 6 weeks spent solely on writing and chatting with other writers. This could seriously change the game for me. So it was Laura, and honestly, this was the first time I was hearing about it. Greg noticed it immediately. I'm pretty confident they'll give you the green light. Your writing has really leveled up over the past year. Nice work. I think you're going to get in. I've thrown my hat in the ring too, though. I'm feeling a bit unsure about my chances of getting in. My internal radar for ridiculousness was through the roof. Honestly, Greg, when did you start being so humble? I wasn't a fan of what I was hearing, but at this point, my feelings for my wife were still strong, and I had trust in her. After all these years of marriage, trust is absolutely essential. You're not wondering, is she up to something shady? You wouldn't even think about it. Marriage is all about teamwork, and your partner is your perfect match. She's proven her dedication time and time again, and all you really want is for her to achieve the success and happiness she rightfully deserves. Or at least that's your take on it. Eventually, everything falls apart when your trust is completely broken. Update 1. As time passed, I found myself able to set aside the conversation I had overheard that evening. As I said before, I completely trusted my wife. Some younger guys might not understand this, but after being married for over 20 years, trust evolves into a lifestyle rather than just a decision. It was late April, and I was wrapping up some gardening outside when I figured it was time to call it a day and head inside. As I approached the kitchen door, I overheard my wife on the phone saying, "I can't wait. 6 entire weeks free from any obligations, no ties, and no one expecting a response from me." I totally got excited about that last part. I stood still, straining to hear. For sure, I'm about to dive into the most indulgent 6 weeks ever. I really need to prioritize my own needs. Same goes for you. This just didn't sit right with me. I swung the door open and stepped into the kitchen. Laura looked a bit taken aback, but I've got to bounce. Ab has arrived, and it's time for me to get dinner ready. She ended the call abruptly. Who was that calling? Just Nora, huh? We were chatting about how school is almost done for the year. There's no way that was true, I thought. I felt the urge to confront her about some of her comments, particularly the bit about nobody waiting for me to return home. But I had a feeling that honesty might be hard to come by this evening. I felt my mood take a dive, but I tried to keep it under wraps for now. Later that night after dinner, things took a turn. Yo, you guys are not going to believe the awesome news I got today. Hey, remember that writer's workshop in Ohio I applied for? Nope, seriously, you barely even noticed me. Honestly, I had come across that workshop before, but it was just because I happened to catch her talking about it that night over a month ago. I don't remember you bringing it up. Absolutely, I did. I submitted my application for a 6-week writer's workshop. It runs from mid-June to late July at the University of Ohio. They host lectures featuring their professors, invite successful writers for seminars and discussion groups, and then we engage in a ton of writing. I'm super excited to share that I got accepted. What a fantastic opportunity. That sounds amazing, my friend. I'm pretty confident we can handle it money-wise. Thinking about taking some time off work to hang out with you. I'm totally down to check out those writers' talks. She looked totally caught off guard. Sure, we can think about it. It's about to get super hectic for the next 6 weeks, so I probably won't have much time to hang out with you. My gut was feeling off again. Honestly, I'm pretty chill about things, and I could totally take on the role of the coffee guy for everyone. She gave a bit of a hesitant grin. That sounds pretty cool, my friend. Let's find out what happens. I've experienced those kinds of deflections before, and I understood what they signified. She had it all figured out to make sure I wouldn't be heading to Ohio with her. It seems like you might prefer if I didn't tag along. Oh, come on, it's really not like that. I'm just concerned you could think it's boring. You're all about tech and electronics, and this is just some authors discussing grand concepts. Dense. I didn't say it out loud, but in my head, I was practically screaming for everyone around to catch on. I'm not dumb, you know. Whoa, that's not how I intended it. I'm just pointing out that your focus tends to be on the specifics, while writers often wrestle with broader existential themes. Huge, massive. But I decided to keep that thought to myself. I could sense when I was being pushed to the side. I'm confident you'll do great. She's going to be busy later tonight. Once Laura hit the hay, I jumped online to check out our phone records. So AT&T has that feature available. Every call you make or receive, as well as all your text messages, gets recorded. I checked the phone log, and the call I interrupted wasn't with Nora. If it was, it came from Greg's phone. It's mind-blowing how fast trust can shatter after 20 years of marriage when you find out your wife has been dishonest and is plotting to leave you out of her plans. Weeks went by, and it felt like she was totally wrapped up in all the talk about the workshop. I tried several times to bring up the possibility of going with her or visiting at some point, but she shot down the idea every time. Then she moved from justifying her actions to trying to control the situation. Yo, I've got some super exciting news to share. I scored you and Tom 2 tickets to a fishing camp up in northern Canada for late June. It's going to be awesome. Why not grab Tom and head out for some fishing? You can finally catch those big brown fish you've been raving about. It was pretty pricey, but I really wanted to show my appreciation for your understanding about the writer's workshop. I felt a little bad that you might not be having as much fun. All right, go out there and enjoy yourself to the fullest. We can totally swap stories when I get back. I had a feeling that something was off. Appreciate it, my friend. That was really thoughtful of you. Honestly, I'd enjoy spending time with you more. Come on, we've already talked about this. That just doesn't make any sense. I'll be busy the whole time, and I wouldn't want to leave you hanging like that. I took a quick look at her face and eyes, attempting to figure out what they revealed. Was it looking down on someone? Thanks, that sounds like a blast. I wasn't feeling very excited. I was totally mapping out my choices in my head. An unexpected journey to Ohio was the main focus. Come on, you could at least throw in a smile while saying that. Those tickets cost a pretty penny, and I just want you to enjoy yourself. Absolutely, that sounds like a blast. I went down to the basement to mess around for the rest of the night. So our place is pretty vintage and features one of those classic floor grates in the hallway. It allows warm air to circulate from the furnace room and was the original method for heating the first floor. At first, I was super careful not to step on it by accident, but eventually, I got so used to it that I totally forgot it was even there. The phone's chilling in the hallway, just so you know. I was down in the basement, minding my own business and thinking about what to do next when I caught wind of Laura on the phone. Totally, I handed him the tickets. He's still on the fence. I have no idea. I keep saying he won't have a good time. Honestly, I can't just say he shouldn't show up. I get where you're coming from, and I want that as well, but I also want to make sure we stay married afterward. I really just need him to back off a bit so I can have some time to myself for a few weeks. I totally earned this. I totally deserve this. Absolutely, I'm all in for those weeks together. Okay, let's hang tight for a moment. I have a feeling he'll eventually see things differently. All right, I miss you as well. Craft something amazing for me this evening. And just like that, she hung up the phone. I had this tight feeling in my throat. I'm not oblivious. I can spot cheating from a mile away. It seems like Laura might be involved in an affair, or at least thinking about it. Anything below that, and she'd definitely be in for some serious explanations. After 20 minutes of wrestling with my thoughts, I realized that, for the time being, I had to embrace the very thing I've always loathed, becoming a liar. For now, I had to keep my motives under wraps until I could sort out my strategy. I called up and in my sweetest voice said, "Laura, I'm on my way to see Tom and share the exciting news." "Oh, that's awesome, my friend. Have fun with that." And just like that, I found myself stepping out of the basement door. I required some space. Going to see Tom was just a cover story. As I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that I needed someone to talk to, and Tom had always been my best buddy since we were kids. No way. Tom always got straight to the point. "Absolutely not. I can't believe that. She would never turn her back on you, Ab. Looks like she's really putting in the effort to keep me from that workshop. And she's calling someone else baby, and it sure isn't me." We just sat there not saying a word. That's what a lot of dudes really crave from a friend, just hanging out and sharing the struggle. "You really should talk to her about this, Ab. Don't spend the next few months jumping to conclusions without having all the facts. So what's her response going to be? How much do you want to wager that when I looked at the phone records tonight, it wasn't Greg she was chatting with, it wasn't Greg she referred to as baby, and it definitely wasn't Greg she's scheming with? No way I'm putting my money on that. So what's the game plan? I'm about to take a seat and have a real conversation. That's just how it goes after being together for 20 years. I'm going to share my feelings with her, tell her I'm upset that she doesn't want me to join her, and I'll directly ask what's going on that makes her want to keep me out of it. Do you really think she's going to be honest with you? Nope, I'm going to be honest with her, even if some of it might not be what she wants to hear. She'll totally get how much I care about her. She'll realize that if she cheats on me, it's game over for us. And then she'll likely attempt to persuade me that I'm just overthinking it and should take a break to go fishing. I took a brief moment to stop and think. So guess what? I've got my hands on 2 tickets for this awesome fishing camp up in northern Canada-ish at the end of June. And one of them is yours. Sweet. Tom realized what he was doing. Honestly, I've got your back, my friend. I couldn't help but laugh. I've always had a clear sense of where his loyalty stands. We hung out, exchanged ideas, and enjoyed some drinks for about 3 hours before I made my way home. After dinner, I invited Laura to join me in the living room and shared all the things that had been weighing on my mind. So I pretty much shared everything, but there were a few things I decided to keep to myself. Hey, I've got some major concerns to talk about. I feel like you haven't been totally honest with me regarding this writer's workshop. I caught wind of your conversation with your writers group back in March, but you didn't bring it up to me until after you had already made your plans to go. I happened to catch you discussing how affairs are a usual thing for great writers, and I have to say I didn't find that funny at all. You've been chatting with Greg about your trip, but when I ask, you feed me some misleading info and say it's someone else. You're already in the loop about how I feel about that dude. So when you shared the news about your acceptance, it felt like you were intentionally keeping your distance and trying to dissuade me from joining in. I don't need to be there, but I really wanted to be part of this awesome journey with you. Rather than taking that into account, you went ahead and set things up for me to be elsewhere without even talking it over with me, just deciding for me. It seems like you're making sure I won't be around when you're in Ohio. I'm getting the feeling that you might not be telling me the whole truth, and it's making me wonder about your faithfulness. I've always been loyal to you, and I would never betray your trust. What's up with you? You're my partner, and my only wish is for you to enjoy yourself. It honestly stings to know you could see me that way. It's impossible for me to manage my emotions or the things that set them off. I just want you to know how much I care about you. I've had feelings for you since day one, but I can't ignore the thought of being betrayed. So Laura, is that the plan you've got in mind? Is this writer's workshop really just your way of avoiding our marriage? So that was it for our chat. No more deep talks or warm feelings. Just like that, it's over. She erupted into a fit of yelling, and for the remainder of the night, it was either a barrage of shouts or an eerie silence from her. Then, for the next week, it was just crickets. She was giving me the cold shoulder, trying to make me back off and submit to her will. But it just didn't pan out. Honestly, it just made me more sure of my beliefs. But I came to the conclusion that this approach wasn't getting me anywhere. So in the end, I let her think she had won. If she had intentions to be unfaithful, there really wasn't anything I could do to stop it. I caught a phone conversation that hinted she might have already gone through with it. In the end, I expressed my gratitude for the trip to Canada, but I still felt down, and it wasn't until the trip concluded that my spirits finally improved. As soon as she got what she desired, her attitude shifted dramatically, and she started playing the role of the affectionate wife to encourage the behavior she was looking for from me. It felt like she just flipped the switch, and that only made me more suspicious. I'm well aware of when I'm being manipulated. The writer's workshop in Ohio was a solid 400 miles away, and I was totally flying solo with no familiar faces around. I asked a coworker who he turned to when he thought his wife might be cheating. I took his suggestion, and the individual he pointed me to was located in Ohio. I hit them up for some help. The workshop was conveniently held on a state university campus, making it an ideal location. The PILS operatives were unable to take part in the program, but they had the freedom to roam the campus and check out the rooms as necessary. The participants would grab meals at the campus cafeterias, hit up local bars, and crash in a big dorm with fellow students. This created a chance for stealthy observation. Some of these students would literally be working for me, armed with cutting-edge tech. With the school year wrapping up, our daughters made the choice to stick around at their universities over the summer to dive into research projects alongside their professors. This meant we were still in that phase of life where the kids were gone, and I really put in the effort. I asked her out for dinners, whipped up meals at home, and brought her along to different shows. She appeared to be having a great time, and I began to think that I was actually getting somewhere. But every time I shared my feelings for her, I felt this vibe of, yeah, I get it, coming from her. Bit by bit, everything started to make sense. It wasn't that she didn't love me anymore. She just started to overlook what we had. I was the one she could count on, always there, her go-to support. She was confident that she could leave, chase after some thrill, take a breather from our marriage, and I would still be here when she came back. This epiphany set everything in motion for my plans. On the day she left, it hit me that I had to say what was on my mind. We hung out by the door while we waited for her shuttle to the airport to show up. As I wrapped my arms around her, I poured out my feelings, begging her not to take any actions that might jeopardize what we have. She shot me an annoyed glance and snapped back, "I'm fed up with you not believing in me. When I get back, we need to have a real talk about this." She pecked me on the cheek, snatched her bags, and made her way to the shuttle. She just took off, not even bothering to look back at me. In that instant, I was convinced that my marriage was reaching its conclusion. After 20 years and raising our 2 daughters, it felt like our relationship was quietly slipping away, almost unnoticed. The private investigator totally nailed his job. He said they didn't even try to conceal what they were doing since they were in a strange environment. When Laura got to the workshop, it seemed like she had taken off her wedding rings during the flight, since they weren't on her finger anymore. She straight up said she just got divorced, and my wife and Greg hit it off right away. They were always by each other's side, exchanging kisses, holding hands, and behaving like love-struck teenagers. My PI cleverly set up a tiny video camera in the dorm hallway where they were staying. Even though Laura and Greg were given separate rooms, they ended up sticking to just one. Every now and then, they'd crash in her room, other times in his, but no matter what, they always ended up spending the nights together. I already knew what was going down in those shared dorm rooms, but my PI and his crew really went all out to back up my hunches. One evening before the sun set, my wife and Greg called it a night early. 2 operative detectives, blending in like your average college students, lounged against the hallway wall, stealthily sliding a tiny fisheye camera under the door. This gadget recorded a 20-minute clip of Greg doing his thing. The video quality was unexpectedly sharp, and by the end, it was clear he hadn't taken any precautions. That was the last thing I could take. I had made up my mind. I was finished with this marriage. Whatever else the team found just added more proof to back up my position. My private investigator was on top of things, keeping me in the loop all the time. But after that first week, it became obvious what was going to happen, and I knew what I had to do. From the very beginning of her workshop, I dedicated my time to executing my plan. I wanted to fade away, becoming something like a specter. When she came back, I would have vanished, and there would be no turning back, no deceit, no demands, no drawn-out conversations, clarifications, rationalizations, or efforts to wrap things up. It would just lead to a split. My marriage is over. Love doesn't just disappear overnight, but really, what is love if there's no trust involved? A future just isn't possible with a wife who cheats. Some people might say that my solution was weak. They might argue that she warrants severe consequences, total humiliation, and absolute ruin. In the end, the law would stop me from going down that path, and I had no desire to mess up my life by seeking petty revenge on my unfaithful wife and her lover. My plan for revenge would involve stripping away the one constant in her life, the unwavering support that always comforted, encouraged, and inspired her. I was distancing myself. Greg really wasn't all that great of a catch. He just wasn't able to give her what she was looking for in the long run. Where can a 50-year-old divorced mom discover love and emotional security? I wasn't worried at all. She's no longer my problem. Every few days, my private investigator would drop more pictures, more videos, and more evidence of the betrayal from someone who swore loyalty above everything else. The reports were a real struggle to get through, and the photos and videos? Just brutal to see. The audio recordings were really tough to handle, particularly when they make me feel sick. He's constantly hitting me up about the fish he's reeling in and how incredible it is up there. She chuckled as she mentioned that he expresses his gratitude almost daily. He's totally lost. Greg couldn't help but join in on the laughter. Keep him clueless. Just keep him in the dark and feed him nonsense, and you'll be rid of his irritation. He should just have a good time while he can. When I get back, I'm totally going to call out that guy for his claims. Seriously, how can he keep throwing around those cheating accusations? So you're just hitting pause on our marriage for a bit, huh? Gorgeous? Or is there someone else in my bed every night? She totally laughed at that. What a? He might have a point, but I'm not putting up with that. I'm a writer, for crying out loud, and he's just stifling my creativity with all his tech talk and programming nonsense. His tiny little gadgets and gizmos. What does he really get about the big concepts? Update 3. I've been thinking about different ways to get back at them. I came to the conclusion that none of those choices would genuinely fulfill me while my life was still intertwined with hers. With no other options left, I started to pull away from her. I had a candid chat with my boss, laying everything out on the table. He totally got it, having been through something like that himself not too long ago. He set up a transfer for me to our office in Burlington, Vermont. I thought the concept was pretty interesting. I knew the folks there pretty well. They were talented and knew their stuff, plus I had a great time hanging out with them. I found both the town and the state really appealing. I arranged for some movers to take half of my furniture and all my personal stuff up north. I made sure my car was all set for the trip. So I decided to talk to a lawyer to kick off the divorce process. When it comes to finances, Laura was all set with her own insurance and retirement account. I took her name off everything and made my daughters the beneficiaries instead. I signed a quick claim for the house, giving it to her in return for not having to pay alimony. She was planning to hold on to her car, but she had to take care of her own insurance situation. I intended to deal with the bank accounts and credit cards later on, keeping my plans under wraps. From that point on, I dedicated myself to strengthening my determination. I tried reaching out to her to check on how the workshop was going and to share my feelings. I thought that listening to her lies would only make me more certain that what I did was right. She totally delivered. In under 2 minutes, she responded with excitement, expressed her feelings, and dashed off to dinner. My private investigator later told me that Greg was right there with her, sharing those knowing looks and making mocking gestures, which just confirmed my choice. It was clear she was treating the whole thing like a joke, which just reinforced that I was heading in the right direction. So I decided to just text her instead of calling, because I wasn't confident I could handle my feelings on a call. I would tell her about my successful fishing trips, but honestly, I sent Tom and his wife out there instead. They totally had an awesome time. Tom definitely picked a winner when it comes to his partner. I made sure to drop by and say goodbye before I left, and they assured me they'd come to visit. With the end of her 6-week workshop in sight, I wrapped up my last tasks. A buddy of mine who's in real estate hooked me up with a for sale sign to stick in the front yard. I really couldn't sell the house without her knowing, especially since I had already given her ownership, but she had no clue about that part. The moment she stepped through the door, the sign would immediately catch her eye. I switched out the locks on the house to create a vibe that felt less like her space, picked out specific photos from her trip, including some pretty revealing stills from the video shot under Greg's door, and put together a copy of the private investigator's report. I put everything out on the dining room table to make it clear that I knew what she had done. The movers had already taken care of most of my stuff, and they're holding on to it until I'm all set to go. I just brought along 2 suitcases, my briefcase, laptop, and guitar. Having my guitar was totally essential. I just can't hand over something so valuable to anyone but myself. Even though Greg may have a thing with my wife, my guitar holds a special place in my heart. I was all set to leave the next morning. fully aware she wouldn't be back until later that night. In this scenario, I'd be out of the picture by the time she showed up. But I totally flipped my decision the night before. I wanted her to feel the pain immediately while she was left to wait and fret until she got back. I shot her an email with 3 perfectly picked photos of her and Greg, paired with the message, "Divorce you. I'm done with this. It's over. I'm done with this. It's over." I chose a photo where they were almost close on the dance floor, clearly indicating that she wasn't wearing her engagement and wedding rings. The second image shows them strolling into his dorm room, hand in hand. The third image was a screenshot from the dorm room video, clearly showing her face. I figured she'd come across those images, and I was kind of hoping it would ruin her last romantic night with Greg, while they desperately looked for cameras that had already been taken down. So I just decided to power down my phone. Walking away from the place that held so many memories for our family felt like a whirlwind of emotions. Heartache, doubt, and a strange sense of liberation all rolled into one. It was like the ultimate mix of struggle, doubt, and freedom all hitting me at the same time. Basically, my wife was no longer a part of my life. I had no clue about the timing or the reasons, but it felt like she was gone, even though I wasn't the one responsible for it. The woman left behind, looking like my wife, felt like a complete stranger, someone I couldn't recognize and had no desire to reconnect with. I was diving into a new beginning, staring down an uncertain journey ahead. In the midst of profound grief, there was a strangely freeing feeling. The burden of lies, treachery, and condescension was momentarily eased from my shoulders. The only price I paid was that half of my existence was now out of reach. Even though it was late, my thoughts were all over the place. So I ended up driving around 100 miles down the empty highway, deep in my own head, until I finally stumbled upon a hotel for the night. I wasn't in the mood for a chain hotel. I was really hoping to find a true local spot for breakfast. I was on the hunt for something real. Finally, I stumbled upon it and relished what might be my final serving of grits for quite some time. While I enjoyed those grits, my mind wandered, and I started to rethink my trip to Maine. This was the kickoff of my new chapter, and I had quite the road trip in front of me. I could rush my way to Maine trying to leave my issues behind, but I had a 2-week gap before my job kicked in. What's the rush? I needed some time to sort through my feelings, deal with their betrayal, and move on from what happened. I decided to take my time, soaking in the views on my drive north and connecting with the locals in each state I traveled through. This week marks the shift from my old life to my new one. I wanted to treat myself, especially my taste buds, to wash away the negativity and errors of my past and prepare for a new beginning. Spent the rest of the day just wandering around Charleston, soaking in the summer vibes with all the crowds. I checked out the amazing skills of talented artisans and craftsmen. I somehow pulled it off and found a spot to crash, even without a reservation. After a light dinner and getting cozy for the night, my mind drifted back to my failed marriage. At that point, she was probably on her way back home. I was curious about her reaction when she spotted the for sale sign in the yard and figured out that her keys wouldn't work anymore. The following day, I took off north and cruised along the back roads, making my way to Richmond, the capital of Maryland. I traveled through quaint towns and historic plantations along Virginia's ancestral rivers, such as the York, Rappahannock, and Potomac, all of which eventually flow into the Chesapeake Bay. There was just one long stretch of road in front of me, guiding me toward what lay ahead. I would take that winding route as it led me away from deceit and into a new phase of my life. Update 4, I'm sitting in my hotel room in downtown Richmond, and I finally decided to power on my cell phone. Just as I thought, my phone was blowing up with missed calls, emails, and texts. The majority were from Laura, with a handful coming from friends. I went through all of them, both reading and listening, even though it was a challenge. That was definitely a crucial move. At first, Laura was trying to persuade me that the situation wasn't what it seemed. Sure, whatever. She sent those messages from Ohio before heading back home to check out the rest of the photos and go through the PI's report. In the meantime, my friends were telling me that Laura was trying to contact everyone to track me down. She had no idea she was searching in all the wrong spots. Tom and his wife knew what was up, but I decided to keep the rest of the crew clueless on purpose. I'd give them a heads up once I was all settled in. I knew deep down that I couldn't just linger in the shadows indefinitely. I was really worried after receiving those 2 calls from my daughters. Laura reached out to them to try and figure out where I was. I intentionally kept my decision to leave their mother to myself because I wanted to have that conversation in person, but I just couldn't let them stress out. I had a chat with my daughters and laid out the situation for them in a calm way. They were really bummed out and just couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that their mom would pull something like that. I shared the same pictures I had sent to Laura the night I left home, along with the PI's report for them to check out. Following that, they promised to keep my actions a secret from their mother. Another missed call popped up. So my lawyer just let me know that Laura has officially been served with the divorce papers. Wild, right? At that moment, she realized I was serious. He also mentioned that Greg's wife got a full collection of photos, videos, and audio recordings from his 6-week workshop. Looks like Greg just got hit with some serious karma. On the third day of my journey, I cruised through northern Maryland, and with a surge of excitement, I finally made it to New Jersey. Actually, that's not quite right. I made my way through New Jersey without stopping until I hit Connecticut. During my time in Connecticut, I spent a few hours checking out some of the historic towns along the coast. I didn't really have a set goal in mind, but the architecture was so different from what I'm used to back in Georgia. It gave me this intense feeling of being in a completely new place, both in terms of my surroundings and my emotions. And let's keep this between us, but I spent an hour in Newport trying to see how many submarines I could spot. Those dark fish are super sneaky. As I looked out at the shore, it struck me that when they refuel those nuclear submarines, they actually cut a hole in the hull to access the reactor, and then they weld it all back up again. Could that be a metaphor for what I'm going through? Could Laura's betrayal, which left me feeling shattered, actually be the catalyst I need to revitalize my life? Is it possible for me to find healing as I start this new chapter in my life? When I opened my eyes the next morning, I had a feeling it was going to be the toughest day yet. After a solid breakfast of eggs, bacon, toast, and a robust cup of black coffee, I prepared myself for a tough chat with my oldest daughter, Emma, in Brown. The trip was quick, and I got to her dorm by late morning. We figured it was best to hold off on our chat for a little while, letting her put on a happy face for an hour or two. She gave me a tour of the campus and then led me to the cafeteria where she introduced me to her crew. They were just the type of young people I had always wanted her to be around. They were super chill, really engaged, and it felt like everyone had each other's backs. As we were leaving, I pulled Emma's roommate to the side and let her know that Emma was about to have quite the day. I asked her to take care of my daughter. She responded naturally, Mr. Baker. She filled us in last night. We're all in this together for her. Absolutely. My daughter really knows how to pick her friends. Emma and I chilled in her dorm room for hours, just talking about everything and anything. I showed her some photos and played audio clips that I honestly never thought I would share with one of my kids. Her feelings swung from deep sorrow to intense frustration. I seriously can't wrap my head around what Mom just did. Is she really the same person who brought us up? What kind of repulsive individual has she become? I felt the need to step in at that moment, even though I got where she was coming from. Emma, no matter her actions, she will always be your mother. Just keep in mind, I'm the one she's turned her back on. Not you, sorry, Dad, but she completely broke apart my only family. This is seriously impacting me. I can't argue with that. We kept chatting all afternoon, and I laid out my plans for her. I suggested she round up her friends, and we hit up the top spot in town for dinner, or at least the top spot that wouldn't break the bank. It felt like everyone was totally stoked to take a break from the usual dining hall grub. I recounted my own college dining adventures, and it seemed to spark a fresh appreciation for what they have going on now. I crashed at a nearby hotel that night, and the following morning, I grabbed breakfast with Emma, shared an emotional hug, and then made my way up to Boston to do it all over again. It seems like Emma must have given Lily a heads up because Lily's response was way more chill compared to her older sisters. Disappointment and anger lingered, but the element of surprise had faded. She asked to check out the proof, and I shared it with her. Funny enough, her mom called while we were chatting, and I just gave her the classic no sign, like, I'm not available right now. I shook my head, waved my arms wildly, and made a slicing gesture across my throat. She got it. Lily was definitely the one who kept her cool in the family. Then she pulled off something I never expected to see. So she was like, Dad called last night, right? Have you really turned into someone who deceives her husband and gets involved with several partners while keeping it all a secret? I was totally caught off guard. I felt the urge to call her out for how she talked to her mom, but honestly, I couldn't ignore the validity of what she was saying. Yeah, you got that right, Mom. You were off doing your thing for 6 weeks while Dad was just sitting at home by himself. Did you think it was worth it, Mom? Was it really worth it to throw away your marriage for that? Wow, my daughter really knows how to express herself. Reminder to self, steer clear of her wrath. Not really anything else to talk about. Lily told me her mom was pretty much in tears, trying to come up with excuses, but my daughter wasn't having any of it. So I ended up taking Lily and her crew to this Thai spot called the Elephant Walk, which is pretty close to campus. Just like her sister, Lily had picked her friends carefully, making dinner a really enjoyable experience. As we were heading back to campus, one of her friends chimed in. Mr. Baker, Lily filled us in on what you're dealing with. She was super bummed out last night, but we totally had her back. How about swinging by again? We'd love to take you to the cafeteria. That got everyone cracking up. Honestly, I think we might be able to discover a spot that's even better than that. This led to even more laughter, and we chuckled all the way back to her dorm. I secured a spot to crash for the night, enjoyed breakfast with my daughter in the morning, and on the 7th day of my adventure, I pressed on heading north. I left Boston and ended up only 2 hours south of Portland. I found my attention moving away from my soon-to-be ex-wife and towards my daughters. Watching them evolve into strong, principled young women fills me with pride. I've come to see that they'll handle the upcoming divorce way better than I expected. It was tough to walk away from these two incredible gems, not knowing when I'd get the chance to see them again. Turns out, I was stressing over nothing. I wasn't ready to face the truth of kicking off my new life just yet. So when I got to Portsmouth, NH, I headed west and cruised towards the White Mountains in the Presidential Range. I made my way into the White Mountains and hopped on the cog railway to reach the top of Mount Mansfield. As I stood there looking out over the smaller peaks of the White Mountains and taking in the lush green pine forest below, I felt the chill of the Arctic winds that felt oddly out of place for early August. In that moment, I experienced a sense of renewal within myself. I found myself on my own, yet here I was, finally standing strong. I went through a major change, shedding the struggles and regrets of my past, and now I'm all set to dive into this new chapter and everything it has to offer. I found myself on elevated terrain, ready to kick off a new adventure. All that I wanted was right in front of me. The following morning, I got myself a plate of pancakes drizzled with authentic maple syrup. I find myself in the land of maple syrup now, and it looks like that's where I'll be for quite a while. Feeling refreshed and ready to go, I hopped back in my car and headed to Portland. I got there in the afternoon, so I figured I should check in with my new boss to let them know I had arrived. I already knew about half of the office crew, and they gave me a really friendly welcome. It was a comforting experience. Those were the first bright, straightforward faces I had seen in a week. So my new boss, David, decided to round everyone up in the office for some introductions. I got a brief look around the workplace, but only after everyone settled on our dinner plans. I thought we were heading to a downtown restaurant, but to my surprise, we ended up at David's place, grilling steaks and enjoying all the sides. I get it, I totally should have taken my time to enjoy lobster in Maine, but honestly, there was no hurry for that. This was more about finding a way back into the community. As I savored some incredibly delicious steaks paired with some seriously amazing local beer, they asked me about my story. What was a dude from the South thinking? Picking up his whole life and heading to Maine at this point. I just posted my story. I left out the graphic details, but gave them enough info to get the gist. I wrapped things up with a little heads up. I might be a bit on edge in the coming weeks. I'm not typically like this, but there's a lot on my mind right now. I really hope that if I start acting up, you'll step in and tell me to chill out. Sometimes a little nudge in the right direction would be appreciated. Out of nowhere, all the women there wrapped their arms around me and planted a quick kiss on my cheek, while the guys casually draped an arm over my shoulder. We've got your back, Abby. That's everything they mentioned, and honestly, that's all that was required. Later that night, as I got comfy in my hotel room, I turned my cell phone back on. My daughters both shot me some really supportive texts. It seems like they passed my number around. because I ended up getting around 8 or 10 more texts from various guys and gals who really enjoyed the dinner and wanted to let me know they'd be there for my daughters. Those kids are absolutely amazing. A bunch of friends kept hitting me up, so I decided to touch base with all of them and lay out what was going on to ease their worries. I held off on sharing my location. That detail would be saved for later. I just explained my reasons for leaving. Even though they were hesitant at first, I shot over the same 3 photos I had shared with Laura and let them know I had even more damning evidence if they wanted to be convinced further. I thought about it, but really I just couldn't come up with any good reason to protect her from making her own decisions. I gave it a shot, but it just didn't pan out. All right, it's time for the real story to be revealed. Eventually, I got a bunch of messages filled with love and support from everyone, and I promised I'd keep in touch. It was becoming more and more clear that my ideas about turning into a ghost were just a bunch of wishful thinking. It's pretty wild how many people actually care about me, and honestly, that's a good thing. I checked out the leftover texts from Laura and went through the missed calls. In the end, she finally admitted the truth, but her admission was laced with odd fits of rage. Somehow, she found a way to pin all her actions and everything that happened on me. Honestly, that's just absurd. I shot her a message letting her know I'd give her a ring the next day around noon. It was only a matter of time, right? Let's just say the chat didn't quite hit the mark. She oscillated between pointing fingers, feeling remorse, and refusing to accept reality. She felt regret. Greg had a major impact on her. I was really putting the pressure on her. I totally messed up because I was putting in way too many hours. She really had the nerve to say that nothing significant went down between them. They were just having some fun. I nearly lost it when she insisted she was just looking for her creative spark. She really went off the deep end, accusing me of turning our daughters against her, as if her own behavior hadn't already done that all on its own. Once she stopped talking, I got straight to the point with her. She teamed up with Greg to stab me in the back, pushed back against my attempts to fix things, went through with the betrayal, and now she was dealing with the fallout. I stopped worrying about the reasons. After I hung up, she was still sobbing and trying to make her point. I was over her. Once that decision was made, there was no going back. I was aware of way too much. I found a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in an older building, and it's super close to the office, which is a nice bonus. I figured I could get some exercise from walking and thought it would just be a short-term thing. But my view changed pretty fast. Living simply in town, steering clear of the added responsibilities that come with home ownership, and having a cozy little coastal cottage for weekends felt like a solid strategy. Then I was like, why settle for just a cottage? Imagine having a boat, just chilling in the harbor, serving as your own little seaside getaway. By the time I figured all of this out, it was already early fall. I figured I'd be living alone, but that's not how things have played out. I've found that I actually get to spend more time with my daughters now compared to when I was in Atlanta. They roll in for a weekend each month, usually with a few friends in tow. In those 48 hours, my place is alive with energy, and I typically whip up dinner for them. When they're out of the picture, I definitely find myself longing for the peace, but I can't help but feel their absence right away. It's kind of wild, but a couple of my friends have actually dropped by, and the others are thinking about coming over once the weather improves. I'm on my own, but I don't feel isolated. I've connected with some awesome people at work and during my various escapades. The sailing scene is vibrant and welcoming, and I've encountered some fascinating women. I'll keep it civil and composed until everything is wrapped up with the divorce. So even with the divorce about to be finalized, Laura keeps hitting me up. She never really shows any remorse and tends to minimize what happened. Her only response is that it's something everyone participates in. It really doesn't hold any significance. Actually, it really does. The closeness has significance, and the dishonesty and control are even more crucial. I considered breaking it down for her, but honestly, people evolve, and I just don't see the value in it anymore. Honestly, my life is pretty intertwined with hers. Given that I have 2 daughters and a bunch of mutual friends, it's pretty clear that total separation isn't really an option. Still, with 600 miles separating us, I've managed to escape the constant hurt of rejection and betrayal. She was once my everything, but then I faded from her world. I'm taking charge of my journey and shaping my destiny. This situation led to a bunch of positive outcomes. Honestly, I really love it up here. I'm experiencing my first real winter, and it's definitely a bit of a surprise, but if everyone else can deal with it, I can too. The early darkness around here really gives indoor hangouts a snug and warm vibe. I've begun my hunt for a boat and stumbled upon a spot with moorings that's pretty close to town. Can't wait for spring to roll around so I can dive into splicing lines and getting that varnish on. The eateries around here are solid, the craft breweries are amazing, and the locals are genuine. There's a ton of music and dances to explore, like contra dancing, and I'm still finding unexpected gems along the way. I have a feeling that things are going to work out for me in the end. Is my heart completely mended? Not yet, but time has a way of mending things, and I'm optimistic about the brighter days that are coming. By the way, it looks like Greg's wife shares my old-fashioned vibes. She booted him from the house and filed for divorce. It's honestly unbelievable that both Laura and Greg haven't published anything yet.